The Derek Relaford Show on Bedroom Radio.
And we are back. Welcome to the show. I'm joined by Dusty. We're going to start doing this on Friday nights whenever the schedule allows it. And we are joined by Mark from Hinder. How you doing, Mark?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Is that your hand behind you? Did you have that fashioned?
I took the picture of the hand. I think I found that at like a secondhand store. It's like just a rock hand like that, and it's literally in my studio right over here. So.
Really?
Yeah,
is that part of your Caffeine Genius
artwork?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Mark was in Hinder. He still is in Hinder. But nowadays you're really doing a lot of time DIY music. You're recording stuff on your own. You're doing video. Everything's you're doing all by yourself, which is nothing like when you were like on Universal Records and they just told you where to go and where to be. Dusty's in the same avenue. He's an independent artist. He's if something gets done musically for him on his behalf, he does it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. How long have you been? I know the answer to these questions. How long have you been writing ditties? And
well. To put a number on it, 25 years, I guess, 26 years almost. So yeah, since I was a very young man.
Yeah. And is it like
fact, I'm rocking my my first band shirt, Aggression, right there. See that? Israel
still have it,
for us. Yeah, represent.
Did you make that yourself?
The shirt?
Yeah.
Israel made them.
Because I was thinking of
Aggression.
I was like, man, I'm an adult with money now. I should like make band shirts of like old bands that never made shirts, like. Start my own personal collection going on.
Heck yeah, make a Caffeine Genius one while you're at it.
I'll do it, man. I'll do it. We obviously like recording has come leaps and bounds since when we were younger. In like our area of the country, there was only like one recording studio, and it was a guy that was using VCRs to record. If that tells you anything about like, where we were in the late 90s, early 2000s with recording in our part of the country. When was it that you feel like you actually got to start recording music where it wasn't just like, in Clint's bedroom with a laptop and stuff?
Yeah, finally I bought a Mac in, I guess, 2007, and I got a little Pro Tools rig, and it was awesome. Just 2 inputs, but it was all I needed at the time. I never could make drums sound good back then. Nowadays, it's so easy to make drums sound good. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely come a long way since those days. I remember you emailed me a file back in like 2002, and it just never made it. We were going to collaborate on something. And it's still somewhere out there. It never made it. So
still downloading.
Yeah.
So is Pro Tools hard? Go ahead, Dusty.
Yeah, well, like with recording for me, I've just recently delved into it. The Rona kind of forced me to learn some stuff because I knew that I needed to utilize technology a little more and stuff like that. So I've been getting into the recording myself and setting up for live streaming and all that type of stuff. And I've been learning that stuff over the last 7 months, and it's the wormhole that it's worse than being like a musician almost. It's like you're like, oh, but what if I had a different interface? And what if I and you start to, then these ideas snowball, but you're like, I can't afford that gear. Why do I keep thinking this way? and then, the recording thing for me is like with little free time, and I don't have any like training in recording or anything like that. I've always paid to record. And I still will for my actual stuff that I release, but I've gotten better at demoing and layering stuff. And man, it just does so much for you in the songwriting process that you don't have to do when you just go in there to track. I mean, just having the little bit of rudimentary, basic garage band, layering things one at a time to the click, and just to have those things to sit there and go, oh man, there's a cool little lick I could play over the top of that as a layer, and having those things dialed in when you go in the studio. I haven't actually been able to go in the studio because you know, of what's been going on. But now I've got time scheduled, and now that I have that experience, I think it's going to help. It's going to help me when I actually go into the studio, because I won't be sitting there looking for melodies. I'll have already kind of fleshed all that out before I go in. But man, it's such an intimidating, the gear and making sure stuff runs, and it's just all the settings, and your whole thing could be muted if you have one little button pressed, and you're like, which button is it? I know it's around here. And then that's when I usually like hit up Derek. Like, help. Hey, you must be a pretty tech savvy guy. You've got a lot of experience running. You've got your own, like, you have your own like nice studio set up there where you're at now.
You're talking to me or Derek?
Yeah. I was asking. Sorry, Mark. Yeah, you said you were sitting in your studio. So are you recording other people as well? Like, do you have your own professional studio?
It's not super professional. I have an 11 rack that I record my guitars on, and just my Mac that it's going into. And I'm using Logic Pro, because I was a Pro Tools guy forever, but it's too expensive, man. And I talked with the guys. Actually, one of the guys from Papa Roach told me, like, they did their last album on Logic, and you can buy Logic for $200 and you have it, and you don't have to like keep paying for stuff. So I went that route, but my stuff's not super great, but it's I know what I'm doing with it, so I can get by with it for sure.
Yeah, and that technology, like, there's stuff at that level now. You can make a recording sound freaking badass if you know what you're doing. If you have solid takes, you know you're playing to the click and you're doing all the professional things. Like, if you have good takes and you know what you're doing a little bit, you can make some pretty badass recordings DIY.
Oh, absolutely.
I wish I was better at it. That's one thing. It's like, man, I just never got that experience, and now I'm learning it late in my journey here, but it's blowing my mind of like all the doors it opens for you.
Yeah, just YouTube stuff, man. You'll learn everything you need.
That's what I've been doing.
When you guys were because obviously when Hinder recorded their first album, it was like a big thing. Like, you know, like they gave you guys plenty of money to go to a professional studio. There was, you know, there was things to do. It was like an experience. And now, you know, you later on in the game where people are rarely going into that, like, you know, hey, we're going to go spend, you know, $500,000 making a record. Would you say that Hinder is kind of DIY these days, kind of like what you were saying Papa Roach does now? Is that sort of the model that most bands have taken?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to these days. Like you said, our first album, I think it was a $500,000 budget, which is stupid money now. I think our last one, the last record that we had, we don't have a record label anymore, but I think they gave us a budget of $4,000, which is also kind of a joke if you're trying to do stuff big, but you got to stretch that money out. But yeah, we got our own studio in our drummer Cody in his basement after the second album came out. And so we've been recording from there since then. And that was nice. We were still on Universal back then, so we could back bill them every day. We'd charge them like $500 to rent the studio that we already owned. So
nice.
That was one way we got to stick it to the man that treated us well for a while. But yeah, you just have to, dude. I mean, and it's easy. Like the videos that I'm shooting these days, it's literally just my iPhone. I mean, they're not the greatest quality. Actually, the quality is pretty good. It's high def.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to edit it very well yet, but I think I've gotten better. I've put out 3 videos now since we've been in quarantine, just YouTube and shit. And
it's so time consuming, video editing. It's like one of the things, like if someone's like, hey dude, you should make a lyric video for this. I'm like, I can, but I don't want to.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
I did one for a metal band that I was in called Borgia, and it was just a studio project. Somebody put something on Craigslist and they were like in Texas, and like, but if you think you have the chops, send us so I went in and tracked a demo for them and sent it off, and they're like, you're in, dude, let's record it. And I did it. And I was like, I'll make the lyric video. And because I was like trying to be cool guy.
Right.
Man, did I regret that. I was like, no good deed goes unpunished, man. It was like, it took me 6 weeks to put that thing together, and I was spending 6-7 hours a day finding stock footage and editing text into because I don't know the workflow. I don't know the workarounds. I'm learning every single little thing that I'm doing. I have to go watch a video. I'm like, God, how do you move that fucking thing over
Yep. The littlest things.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I feel like my stuff turned out pretty good, and I sent it to a buddy of mine that does videos professionally. He's like, yeah, I can tell you did that on iMovie. Like, that's kind of weak, bro. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not gonna go buy a whole new thing, but anyway.
Oh, video stuff, getting smug. No,
he was.
Was your drummer pretty so I guess like my question is, how early on did Hinder start recording stuff like on the bus and like where you weren't near a studio? Like how and who was the one in the band that was sort of in charge of hitting record and kind of engineering the demos on the road?
So back then, it was probably between the second and third album. So back in like 2010-ish, but it's kind of funny. We flew out our good buddy Marshall, who was in a band called Faction. And he had the Pro Tools rig set up on his computer, and Marshall's now our singer, which is kind of random, but Austin's out, Marshall's in. But he was kind of the guy that really knew his stuff, and he's one of those guys. He can play any instrument, he can do anything you put in front of him. But it was basically him and Cody got together a lot, and they actually have a production company now called Back Lounge Music Production. It's because they started in the back lounge of our bus. That's where it came from.
Really?
Yeah.
So your drummer,
when you guys record a record or whatever, you're indie now, you're not on a label. Do you guys still bring in a producer, or do you guys do all the producing and everything yourselves also?
Yeah, that's all Cody and Marshall do all the production now for the Hinder stuff.
Amazing. That's good.
And they have for the last 3 albums.
So that's one of those things where you look at a band on stage and you see them, they're all playing their parts, you never really know. But I was talking to Dusty earlier a little bit. Cody was like pretty paramount in your guys' success as far as he's actually the songwriter. He knows how to hit record. Like is he doing like was in the early days, was he like a big force that got you guys the success as far as his drive and then also everything he knew how to do?
Yeah, I think his drive for sure is part of it. And they made up the fake label that they made it seem like we already were signed to. We sold like 5,000 copies or something in Oklahoma alone, and we got the buzz from Universal, and that's how he got the contact for us to go up and record in Vancouver in Chad Kroger's studio. And then from there, we ended up getting Nickelback's tour manager wanted to manage bands, so that's how that all worked out. But yeah, that was definitely from Cody's brain working overtime to get that stuff done.
Yeah, he's a smart cookie, man.
Yeah, he does a bunch of lyric videos and stuff too. Like that boy works.
So like, let me ask you this: recording an album on a $4,000 budget and a $500,000 budget, which one is more? Which one do you have more anxiety with? Which one did you actually enjoy more?
Oh, no doubt the $500,000. See, I don't remember those days that well, but they were pretty fun.
I can imagine.
But that was also, our A&R guy was there, kind of breathing down our necks, and also they feel like they have to put in their 2 cents on everything, and which kind of what their job is, I suppose. But it's like, dude, just go away. So that part's more stressful, but having money behind you is a pretty nice thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Some other friends of mine told me like about that. They were in a similar experience. They had something that broke out, and I'm not going to say who they are because it's stuff I was kind of told in confidence, but I can tell the story. But they told me, they got in there with a guitar player that eventually left the band after this experience, but he got in there and he wasn't ready. And the label was there paying for the studio time, and they had a solo, and he tried it 2 or 3 times, couldn't get it. They pulled him out of there, sent a session musician in there. That guy nailed the solo, and they moved right on.
Yeah, I don't think
they couldn't think he couldn't overcome that ego thing or whatever that was to where he was. But the fact of the matter is, you weren't prepared. They're paying for it. Time is money.
Well, yeah, you're talking $500,000 here. And the trick is to not tell the artist. My brother records music for fun. And generally when they leave, he re-records their stuff, just so he knows it's perfect. And, but like that's something that, did you guys have any of that in the early days where you'd go in there and you'd put on a track and then the producer would be like, all right, now let me do it. Like, did you have any of that going on? Or?
Oh yeah, for sure. We didn't really care. Like, if it was going to be quicker for him to play my little rhythm guitar part, go for it, man. Like he worked with the engineer already anyway, so they had a quick system. But I was like, cool, man, do your thing, get it going.
See, and what Dusty was talking about, like a lot of people, and I think I would have had a problem with it back then, because like when you're younger, you want to, I don't know, you want to like Rage Against the Machine, all that stuff. I think that's one of the dumbest things in the world to get a chip on your shoulder about, is like if you're in a situation where you're recording an album for a major label and like somebody plays your guitar, like who gives a shit? It's like, do I have to go home? No, you get to stay. Okay, cool. Fucking
I get both sides of it. It's funny. So we were doing a thing for a show back in the day called CD USA, I think is what the show was called. And we get there and it's us, Buck Cherry, and the Jonas Brothers. Really random, but
nice.
They put it on the spot. Like, we were gonna do Lips of an Angel, and we already knew we were gonna be playing to the backing track, because that's just what it is. vocals were gonna be live, but only lead vocals, not their backup vocals. I was like, F that, man. I'm singing. Like, I'm not going out there and acting like I'm singing this. I about put my fist through a wall because we were all drunk. But anyway, that's the one time I really had an ego thing. But it was stupid because we did it differently live, and Austin was gonna sing it this way, and I was gonna sing it this way with him, not the way it was recorded. Anyway.
Yeah, the weird thing for me, like when the bands that I've been in, even at the level that I've made it to, I've experienced that twice with bands. The last 2 metal bands I was in, we were 5-piece, dual lead, melodic, real heavy stuff. I was screaming, but we would get in the studio and we got in there and our bass player couldn't pull his weight. And so our guitar player was like, dude, we're paying. You've been spending 2 hours on this track, man. We can't spend any more time on this. We have shit to do. And he got real butthurt over it and ended up leaving the band, of course. And then another situation, a drummer went in there and didn't want to play to the click. And we were working, we were spending big money working with someone like up a level. You know what I mean? We finally got an opportunity, and I'm like, I'm not going to go in here and lay an egg. And so the producer actually hit me up, and he's like, yo, dude, your drummer can't play to the click. He's like, do you mind if I
text you don't want to get in the studio?
Do you mind if we program drums? I'm like, absolutely not. And then it became a big issue. But at the end of the day, man, that ego is there because of like insecurity. You weren't prepared.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. And if they're paying for it, or if you're collectively paying for it with other members of a band or something, it's your responsibility to efficiently spend the budget that everyone agreed on. And then if you don't, you wonder why people leave bands.
I'm interviewing my former band teacher next week on my show, and when it was like in the 80s or something. They were, I believe, what it was in Oklahoma somewhere, and they were passing the torch for the Olympics through the city or something like that. Like the torch was coming through Oklahoma, and they had this big thing, and they asked him to sing this song he wrote about Oklahoma. And so he gets there and he's got his guitar on, he's all, he's not nervous. It's Dan Faulkner, he's a professional, and he's getting ready to go on stage, and they tell him right when he's going out there, hey, you're lip syncing. And like he just got so pissed, he's just like, fuck that.
That could have been timed better to tell him, like,
yeah, for sure. I've seen that's the thing that it's hard to tell. If you look up, there's this Alan Jackson video where they showed up to a TV show, and they found out that they were going to be playing to the track on the thing by lip syncing. And if you look closely, the drummer's not holding any sticks the whole song. He's just awesome. Air drumming, and you can't tell unless you like stare at it and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it feels cheesy. I
guarantee it
lip syncing feels cheesy.
There's stuff that I've done for music videos, like for shoots, that have felt really cheesy, really bad, and really awkward and stupid. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how to describe the feeling. You're like disgusted with yourself that you're even doing it. You're like, I'm this pandering dancing monkey doing this thing. And then the dude sends you the video from his perspective with and you're like, oh, that looks sweet.
Yeah.
But it's so weird to me because when I did it, I'm like, there's no way this is going to look good, because how I feel, if I look anything close to how I feel right now, it's not going to.
Yeah, I couldn't be an actor. I can't get into that.
I did that thing for the Done So Much video and the All Crash Down video where we were, it was like a storyline. So we were arguing. So this actress, and she was also a producer of the video. It was, they're a DIY group of friends of mine. But we had to act like we were having like a really serious screaming fight.
That sounds like a nightmare.
And we were like make believing a fight and like yelling at each other and like just trying to make it. And it felt so weird. But then we kind of actually ended up getting into it, and the dude's like, oh, that was good. It's like, you guys must be a little angry at someone. Nice. But no, but then on that, the end result, the video looks awesome. So
yep.
That would be the thing. You're playing the Super Bowl. Just go up there and look as good as you can and do what they tell you to do and enjoy your 6 million Twitter followers.
Well, and I think people take it personally, like whenever bands show up to live events like that and they tell them they're not going to be playing live. Like, what, you don't think I can? They're like, no, it's just really hard to mic a band in a stadium. It's like, we didn't want to spend the money to like make it sound normal. So yeah.
And then you have to broadcast it on TV, and it has to sound good. And like, there's a lot of production stuff that goes into that. And the more I learn about broadcasting and stuff like that, the more intimidating it is to me. And I'm just like, wow, some of the productions that you see are just so impressive. It's like, there's no way you could get that done live, right? Unless you're spending trillions of freaking dollars on gear. And I don't even know what it would entail.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm intimidated by like a Twitch stream. You know what I mean? So imagine like broadcasting the Super Bowl.
So that's made me think. We did a show for the troops. It was an MTV event. It was actually live on. Well, I say it was live. It was on MTV, and we actually did play live. And I hit the brownest of brown notes, and that's what they used for their every commercial break to say that Hinder was coming out. It was my brown note right there.
Oh.
We were watching it, and the guy's like, "What the hell was that?" I was like, "That's me." So that's why we should have played it to track.
They do that on purpose to rub your nose in it, or that's just the clip they went with?
Yeah, that's just what they went with. It was the moment.
So the guy wasn't even crazy.
It was my moment. I stole the moment.
That was like my moment in high school football when I picked off a screen pass and there was nobody there. I was like, this is a 50-yard TD. I'm picking up all the chicks. I'm going to be on the highlights on the news tonight. This is a touchdown. And while I was thinking about that, I tripped over a freaking blade of grass and face planted. It was like, this was the one moment I was like, I have a ball in my hands. There's no one in front of me. If I just run, I can score. And then I fell down.
I want to talk about a conversation we've had. I've had you on the show several times. If I brought this up before, who gives a shit, Mark? New people are watching. Okay. So I moved from North Carolina to Oklahoma City, and like I have bipolar disorder. I just do things. I was living in this place. It was a crappy place. Things weren't going well in my life, and I found out that Ian and Adam Filer and Clint Johnson were going to be recording with you in Oklahoma City for like 3 days. So I was like, that's reason enough to move. So I just like got in my car and booked it, and we were hanging out, and you had on a Hinder shirt, and I was like, what the fuck's a Hinder? And you're like, oh, these guys, man, like they're friends with Chad Kroger, and they're looking for a guitar player. And I was just like, you know, because I was a hater. I thought Nickelback was lame, you know, and I was just like leery. I'm like, dude, are you sure, man? Anyway, you guys do this thing, you get signed and everything, but there was this big long period between the day, like the big happy day when you guys got signed and all that stuff, and so where it was actually like it made sense to be out there every day, you know, because you were just getting per diem for the longest time. Was there ever any time in that period before the hit that you were just like, I made the hugest mistake of my life? Like I'm not like famous yet.
No, because honestly, at that time too, I mean, I was in my 20s, and I didn't own anything. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have anything tie me back down. So it was just fun to be on the road. Did I think that we weren't going to make it? Yeah, there were definitely times, but we were getting paid $100 a show as a signed artist to go tour on the East Coast. And that's crazy to me to think back to. $100 a show. That's not even enough gas money to get to the next show.
No.
But no, I don't think I ever thought that way. And plus, I don't know, maybe we just got to keep hanging out with the right people that were the right cheerleaders for us to make us feel good. And, you know, we'd go play a show in front of 100 people, but then the next day would be in New York City going up and doing, you know, XM radio or something. So there's always cool things that we were doing. So we're like, it's going to get there. We just got to wait it out. And
what was the
for a hot moment?
Because, like, you know, like what I figured out in the American music, if you want to make it, you got to get on the radio. If you want to be like, you know, some people can do it DIY. You know, there's a lot of like NoFX have never signed to a major label. A lot of people know who they are. You know, there's bands that have reached high levels without signing a major label. But obviously, once you get that track on the radio and it plays 15, 20 times a day, like that's good for the bank. That's good for what does that red carpet rolling out look like, and how quickly between the time that you guys decide to put Lips of an Angel on the radio and how quickly to where you couldn't shit in an Applebee's without hearing it twice?
I mean, it was a slow process for sure from our perspective, because we put out the album came out in September of 2005, and Get Stoned was literally on the radio for like a year. It just did this, and then it got up to number 2, and it on the Active Rock, when Active Rock meant something back in the day. It doesn't mean anything these days. Then it just slowly went down. I felt like it was like an 8-month cycle just on that single, and then we put out Lips, and it did the exact same thing, only it crossed over to pop. And
is that what did it? Like it wasn't necessarily the rock crowd
Yeah,
that
when you
got
get
you
the
guys,
pop,
it was
it's
when
got
you
to
went
be
into pop.
massive.
Yeah, the groupies got a lot hotter right then when it went to pop.
I remember
I can believe that.
you had flown to Oklahoma City, and I think you were hanging out with your now wife. You guys had met up, and you were going to hang out. And you had rented a car, and we were driving around Norman, and you were kind of not complaining, but just kind of like, yeah, this kind of sucks, you know. I'm like, I'm not making a ton of money, like things aren't sweet. We're not playing in front of huge crowds. And you told me we're thinking about releasing "Lips of an Angel" as a single, and I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. So obviously, you never listened to me. Because it was a ballad, you know. I was like, nah,
So,
you guys gotta rock,
when
man.
you guys wrote that, was "Get Stoned" the song that got you guys signed?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so you guys had released that independently before.
Well,
and it,
not really. So the guys went up to record before I even joined the band in 04. They went up to record a full album. They're in Vancouver though, and they discovered marijuana, and they only got 6 songs done, and not the 10 that they'd hoped to. So they came home. Those ended up being were the demos for Extreme Behavior, which was the first album, and that's what kind of got. Chief was our manager at the time. He was the Nickelback's tour manager, and he'd never managed bands. And he wanted to get into it, and got with us. But that was how it got started. That's how we got the record deal, because Nickelback was with Roadrunner Records.
Yep.
So we were signing with them. They came to our shows. That's who we were signing with, and like literally, we had I won't say a verbal agreement, but we knew we were going to sign with them. And then the next day, or that night or whatever, we're literally at a bar celebrating. We had a phone call. Atlantic Records and Universal Records are calling. So Universal Records flew in the next night. We did crazy things with that dude. And then the next morning we were with Atlantic Records. And anyway, we ended up going with Universal. Sorry, Roadrunner.
What was it? Literally just
That's
money?
crazy.
What looked nicer about the Universal package?
Just the way Tom Mackay was our A&R guy. We just hit it off with him. The other guy from Atlantic, we already knew he was out, and then there's a little bit more money involved too with Universal. So Roadrunner's great for rock bands, especially in like the 05 era when we got signed. They were great for that, but Universal can take us to different places, so that's why we went that route.
Yeah.
so "Get Stoned" was the first label single, right?
Yeah.
Okay? I'm just making sure I understood the chronology.
I honestly think that because that song definitely wasn't as successful as Lips, but I think honestly a lot of that had to do with the time, like 2004, 2005. Nobody was bragging about getting high if their boss was on Facebook watching them and stuff. You know, like I mean, it was kind of like, you know, you're talking about getting stoned and shit, and I think a lot of that had to do with certain radio stations didn't play. Now they'll play WAP all day long, you know, anything. But like there were, I could see that working against you guys, like it being about drugs, basically.
Yeah, it might have.
I don't think so, man. To be honest with you, as a person, sorry to interrupt you, but this is totally relevant to what Derek's saying. Like, I'm familiar with the band because of that song. Like, so I remember that song more than "Lips of an Angel" because it just appealed to me in a different way. Especially at that time, I was aggro and I was listening to the heaviest shit imaginable. But the "Go Home, Get Stoned," I mean, that resonated with me. So I was like, "Oh, who's this band?"
You're like, okay, I'll do that. I'll go home and get stoned.
Oh yeah. I mean, they're basically already telling me about what I'm going to do and making me feel good about it.
Nice.
But no, I do remember the band personally. My experience with the band from that song more than "Lips of an Angel." You know, I think I maybe got off the wagon at that time, and I was kind of on board with the edgier. You know what I mean? It was just it was that age. You know, as far as commercial success, "Lips of an Angel" is a million times more commercially viable, right?
Yeah,
because you crossed over into pop, right?
Yeah. What's funny for me, that song, it doesn't really have a chorus. It's almost 4.5 minutes long, which radio's 3.5 minutes. That's your formula. That's what you do. The catchiest parts aren't even the chorus. It's funny to me. Actually, Chad Kroeger from Nickelback, he was always mad. Like, I don't get it. I mean, that song's good, but it has no chorus. It has no chorus. You're kind of right, dude. I don't know, but I ain't complaining.
You're like, what does that guy know about writing a chorus?
There was like this because that was, you know, that song was everywhere that summer, and I like this. Like a lot of people would be like, they'd come on like social media and they'd be like, I love the new Hinder song, but I do not agree with what they're talking about. Like, you know, like guys talking to his like
married couples. Like,
I mean, it's sketchy. Mark. You guys are promoting a non-Christian lifestyle.
We are indeed.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there was like
fun
ladies that
boxer.
were bummed out by that. They're like, he's got a girlfriend. You can see her in the video. She's back there.
Yeah, it's so
She
funny how
was
many
on
people
there.
have told us like, "Oh, this is my wife. We got together because of Lips of an Angel." Like, "Oh, you guys used to date back in the day, and then you cheated, and yeah, here you are."
Oh, so you're cheaters is what you're talking about. Oh man.
I imagine there's a lot of that out there. I imagine you hear that all the time. Because I mean, I can remember acquaintances of mine like being drunk at bars at 1 a.m. and that song comes on and it's just Niagara Falls for all the drunk couples and
Right.
all the people, you know, lurking around the bars at that time. It's just
Has there ever been a time where you start that song and you're like, I hate my life just because you've played it a billion times? Like, do you ever just get
Honestly,
like,
no.
okay.
I know I hear interviews with people and they say that they can't stand their hit song anymore, but dude, no. I have a pretty awesome house right now because of it, and I keep myself entertained in it. Like there's one lyric on the second verse that says, "And yes, I dreamt of you too." Well, I always picture the singer dreaming of Bono and The Edge, like dreaming of you too. Like so, you just keep yourself, mentally stimulated.
Let me ask
But
you a
yeah,
question I've never asked
yeah, go
you.
ahead.
You never joined Hinder. Their album comes out. Would you have bought it? Is Hinder something that you would have jammed, but not being in it?
Probably not, because I didn't buy Nickelback albums before. A lot of that, whatever that genre is that you want to call it, I did. I'm still more of a Weezer and Ben Folds guy, so I probably would have known the song. I probably would have really liked "Lips of an Angel" because like my kid wrote that song, But
Yeah.
maybe not. That's a good question. I don't know if I would have.
Yeah, because
so
it's.
you
I
were
mean,
saying something about you were saying something about active rock not being what it used to be. What did you mean by that? Because active rock's a genre that I'm familiar with, and I've got friends that have been successful in that genre, and they're in that genre now. What do you mean by that? I'm curious.
So radio play, like it used to have a bunch of people listen to it, and people just don't listen to the radio anymore.
Right.
And back then, the number one song at Active Rock, that band would go out and sell 1 million albums, or sniff 1 million albums at least.
Right. Okay.
Now that band doesn't. I mean, they'll get followers and whatnot, and get streams and whatnot, but not like it used to be.
They get number ones on biggins on Sirius XM because it seems like Sirius XM is like the biggest platform now. Like if you get on that, then you're you're on your way. And so I guess back then it was probably a lot more terrestrial radio, huh?
Absolutely, yeah.
And the radio stations were like, your booking agency was lining up radio shows and all that type of stuff as you guys were going along the tour. And you don't see that stuff happening now hardly at all.
Yeah, back then, dude, we would be like 7:30 in the morning going in and playing acoustic every morning. And then we'd have a meet and greet with the same radio station later that day. And then the other station in town, we'd be with them at a different point and do, go bowling with the winners of whatever. And it was a lot of work. It was fun work. Don't get me wrong, but we were working. We were busy.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand about that. Like the show part of it's the fun part. I have never toured on a level that you've toured on, not even close. Never reached a level of success that you've reached, as far as commercially or anything like that. But I do know what it's like to travel and to have to do everything. And like as a guy that does everything myself, people think the show is the fun part, guys. Like all the other stuff behind the scenes. Like I don't think people understand how much grind there is behind that. And like to get to that level of success that you guys had, I can only imagine what kind of like publicity you guys had to do every single day. I mean, you got a 60-day run and every day you got 3 things to do. And I mean, can you party as hard as you want to?
Well, these days we don't have to get up at 7:30 in the morning, so it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I'm an old man that just drinks beer now and gets a buzz, and I'm good. So, yeah. Back then we were endorsed. Literally, at one point, we were endorsed by Jägermeister and Jose Cuervo 1800 at the same time.
Nice.
And we'd go to every radio station in the morning and take a bottle of each, and we would go to town. We got a lot of people in trouble.
When you're young, you can pull that shit off, though. Like if you, how long do you think you'd last now?
And by the way, good for you guys for not putting iced tea in those bottles. Like that pisses me off. One thing that pissed me off when I went and watched you guys play one time, you guys were playing with Buck Cherry, and Buck Cherry is not a band that I would ever be like, hey, I'm gonna go put Buck Cherry on. But watching them play that day, that lead singer was built for that job. Like He can't do. I don't think he could do anything. He is like a perfect rock star. Like his voice kills. He's got the rock moves. He sells it to the crowd. But like he's talking about drugs a lot. And then later on, I find out from somebody, I think from your band, like, oh, that guy's been sober for like 20 years. I'm like, well, why is he selling drugs to kids, man? Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. It's paying, baby.
Let me ask you this. So you guys are one of the bands that severed ties with the frontman, which a lot of times, fans are very fickle. Like you change one thing in the band, you might lose them. So you guys decide to part ways with your singer. Did you guys take a hit immediately when that was announced that he was no longer your singer? And how long did it take you to bounce back, or did you ever bounce back?
Well, I mean, bounce back to what? Like we're not bouncing back to 2007 whenever Lips was on top. That ain't happening, but that's okay. Dude, what's crazy to me, like people always take the side of the singer, and I love Austin, I do. He's a brother. But that dude was in the wrong on a lot of stuff. But when stuff comes up, like we have to take him to court for whatever, everyone's like, oh, those guys are assholes. It's like, no, we're not. We're actually pretty good dudes, and he did some stupid stuff. It wasn't really him. He was on a lot of drugs and whatnot. But anyway, it's amazing to me how people will just take the side of the singer because he sings. I don't get it. That's why I started Caffeine Genius, so I can be the singer, so I can do no wrong. Anyway.
I'm guessing you guys didn't.
That's how
I'm guessing you guys didn't decide to fire him in a day. Like, at what point in your guys's journey did you start having meetings without him there and like talking about it?
Well, he had to go to rehab, so we had, as the end of the tour, we had one show left in Denver, Colorado, and he was gone. Like he tried to Dewey Cox our bus and rip it all to pieces, and he was just not himself. He was gone, and he had to go to rehab. He needed it badly, so he did. And we still had some shows left, and we realized we've got to do these shows or these promoters are going to just say Hinder's done. So at that point, we got Marshall filled in on one, because Marshall was producing us back then. And then after that, we got Jared from Saving Abel, because they were off. So he filled in for the rest of the tour, and that tour went great. And I think we might have realized, like, we can probably do this and not have the headache of that guy. So
was it like, yeah. So, and you guys had also like somebody had told, I don't know if you told me or somebody said that there had been like maybe mention of David Cook singing for you guys, or like did you guys ever talk to him?
Yeah, we reached out and he didn't want to. And then he reached out a few months later, and then he did want to, but it was already too late.
Yeah.
David Cook, there was another dude from American Idol, I'm blanking on his name, but I think he wanted to do it and we didn't go with him. But we decided, man, like, if we're going to do this thing still, we know the five of us, we vibe, we get along together. If the fans don't dig it, that's all right. We'll go down happy. So that's kind of what our plan was. And we got Marshall, and it's way different. I won't lie. He doesn't sing like Austin. I don't know anyone that sings like Austin, but he's good and he puts on a hell of a show. He brings it every night. He's really good. So fans are digging it. So we're good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm probably guilty of that. You find out you're one of your favorite band singers in the band anymore. You're just like, this is different. It's like Blink-182 is going through that. I remember. I was gonna say several years ago, I saw that Live was coming to town, and I guess at that point Ed wasn't in the band. I was like, I kind of want to hear him sing the songs that I know and love. So I get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
I was right in that vein. I'm a huge Alice in Chains fan. They're probably my favorite band, whatever. I'm not going to get into my fanboyism of Jerry Cantrell or anything like that. But I went to see them in Wichita at the Cotillion, and it was the first tour that they did with William Duvall after Lane Staley had died. And I'd never seen Alice in Chains with Lane Staley, just because at the time I was too young. My mom wasn't going to let me go to a freaking Alice in Chains show when I was 14. She just wasn't going to let me go. But when the first time I saw them, and then I saw William Duvall, and they did like a tribute to Lane Staley, and they came out and played, and William Duvall won me over.
Yeah,
so it was a situation where I was like, I'll go because Jerry Cantrell's there. I don't care who he's playing with. If he's within, 200 miles of me, I'm going to see him. But then William Duvall went up there and he was super respectful and he kicked major ass and he had the thing of his own and he had the vibe of his own. And I'm like, okay. And then I've loved all the albums that they've done with William Duvall. So I'm like,
nice.
They're one of the few bands that made a transition, especially with a legendary singer like they had. that it still seems to be working for them. I mean, it still seems like they're touring the world and kicking ass. I mean, pre-COVID, obviously, but it seemed like they're still touring the world and kicking ass. So, I mean, it can definitely be done, right?
True. Well, I think it's cool that Hinder has, minus your singer, you guys have all the original members, and that's not, easy to say for a lot of bands that have been out for a long time. What are your thoughts on? So there's this metal band called Chelsea Grin, and they started a long time ago, and they eventually replaced their drummer, then they eventually replaced their guitar player, and now here we are in 2020, and they're still a touring band. They do well, and there's not a single original member in the band. Are you okay with that, Mark?
No, that's weird. I was thinking about that. Like, what's going to happen when bands like AC/DC are all deceased? Like, is there still going to be like people carrying that on, or what's?
I feel like they're going to.
I kind of don't think I'm against it, man. Like I don't know if I want Kiss to stop. I'm probably never going to go to a Kiss concert, but I want to know that I can say no to go to a Kiss concert here in Phoenix. I don't know, man. Like, it's what would that be, like franchising or something? It's like, okay, we can't do this anymore. We got these new guys. This is the new breed. Like, I see, like, well, Chelsea Grin's kind of like the first band that's doing that that I've ever heard of. Like, hey, yeah, we're just gonna keep going. Like, well, nobody here is original. Like, fuck it, we're just gonna keep going, man. Who cares?
If we can franchise ourselves out, I'll totally do that. I'll give my gig to a 20-year-old. He can go out. If I still get paid, I'm good.
Yeah, totally. We stay home, jam in the studio, drink some beers, be home with your kids.
I'm down. You sold me.
Yeah,
you won me over with that idea.
Yep, sign me up, man.
So yeah, Hinder's doing limited touring these days, especially with COVID. But before that, you guys were doing like limited touring and stuff. How long has Caffeine Genius been a glimmer in your mind?
So I wanted to release music forever, but we were always on a label, so I couldn't really do my own thing. But I've always had these songs.
Well, explain that real quick. They were limited frowned upon to do anything besides Hinder.
Well, if anything would have taken off, they would have picked up on it and they would have got their cash. They would have got paid. That's for sure. So I just never, and honestly, I didn't really know if I could, so I just never did it. But just now, like, I'm in a place where I can put out music. I feel like I can do it pretty well. And then COVID happened, and I was stuck, and I wasn't going anywhere. My wife was pregnant at the time. Our son just turned 2 months a couple of days ago. So like we didn't see anyone, and I got to do something. So I just started writing these songs, and then I sent them to your brother. I sent them over to Ian, and he mixes them. That's the one thing that I can't do. I wish I was better at that, but I just don't have the ear for it. So luckily I have your brother on my side. But yeah, like I've wanted to put out songs forever. Like, me growing up, I was always the singer of the band, and it's funny, like Aggression, my first band, we just got on a group text recently for the first time ever. And one of the guys had a picture of all of our songs. There's a page that had like 50 songs on it. So we'd have all these songs I want to do. And I still want to do some of those, which is crazy. But anyway, I just wanted to write some new stuff and put it out there and see what would happen. And I'm learning it's hard when you're the guy doing everything. It's a lot of work.
So Aggression might happen?
Oh, I don't know if I might put out some Aggression songs. I got to talk with the dudes, and we'll just split it 4 ways, and it won't go over. It'll probably be a quarter a piece, but that's all right. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I was at work today, and I was joking with the guys, and I'm like, "Hey, guys," because I got my DistroKid distribution for the quarter or whatever, and I think it was $43.
Oh, dude!
And
so
I
haven't cashed in on mine yet. My first stuff came out in March. Guess what I'm at? Take a guess.
Where are you at? $11.
I'm doing a little better than that. I think I'm at $55.66.
Oh, you're kicking ass, dude. You're getting rich.
I'm feeling pretty good about it. Oh,
how do you get money? Is that just like Spotify plays or?
Yeah, streaming
Apple,
royalty.
All that stuff.
I have Trevino's on DistroKid, and they actually ask me for more money every year. You got like 20 more motherfuckers, man. Like, cause
well, yeah. My DistroKid at least pays for itself now with the streams that I've got. But like I was looking at it today, and I'm like, man, I have over 100,000 streams on my music. For me, that's massive. Awesome. That's massive for a single solo dude that's learning on the fly. I'm cool with it. If that's all I ever do, whatever. I'm gonna keep doing what I do because I love to do it, and that's it. Period. But like, you know how much work went into that, and then to get that check, you're like.
That's ridiculous.
Just so deflated. You're like, you got your chest puffed out. You're like, I got 50,000 streams on a song. That's my first one ever. Like, yeah, that's awesome. And then you get the check, and you're like, oh my god, just deflates you.
Go ahead.
I paid an artist to do my artwork for my single I put out called "Going Crazy." I haven't made that money back yet. Paid 75, and I'm at like $55 right now.
It's insane,
do you have
isn't it?
So is it literally just fun recording songs in your house, or do you ever see yourself trying to play these in front of people?
I mean, I could do coffee shop stuff. I don't want to start another band. I know that much. And a lot of this stuff kind of calls for that, or unless I got a loop pedal and got creative, which I suppose I could. But it's just putting it out there. And I've signed with a company called Hivetown up in Vancouver that I'm trying to get some placement somewhere. That'd be the ultimate goal. If I could get on ESPN one time, one spin on ESPN, I'd be like the happiest dude ever. Yeah.
So that's like where you're kind of at now. Like you want to like get music on like anything, like television, stuff like that.
Dude, yeah, literally anything. I'll sell myself. I don't care. I just want to hear it.
I had some friends that got there. They had one of their songs. The NHL picked it up for like a cutting to commercial, and they got a gnarly check for that one. I mean,
didn't Ian do something for the WNBA?
Yeah, but that was
they gave you $11.
No, we didn't get paid for that. That was just a freebie for my friend. They needed some music for going into the game, and I just did something for him really quick. I got free tickets to a game when I was there, though, so that was my payment.
That's more than what you probably would have in streaming royalties. And
that's a very good point.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, the opportunity. I mean, you probably came out ahead on that.
Do you get any bleed over from Hinder fans onto Caffeine Genius?
Some, yeah. We still have a bunch of diehard fans, so they're the ones that will catch on to that stuff because they know more about me than I know about me. Some of them do, so it's crazy.
Do you have? Because I remember back in the day, I asked you if you had MySpace, and you were like, "That thing would blow the fuck up." No, you're like, "Of course I don't have MySpace." Now that things have cooled off, do you have? How often do you get fans just mess? Because people can find you on Facebook now. You're on Twitter. How often do people message you and like fanboy a little bit or just bug you basically?
Not a whole lot, honestly. And if it is, it's the same people. So
yeah,
there's not a whole lot of fans left anymore for a rhythm guitarist of a band. But I do what I can.
So do you guys have any ambitions of like taking another run at radio?
I don't know at this point. I don't know what we're gonna do. Part of me thinks it would be cool just to be the band that goes and plays fairs. We're at that point in our career, we'll play some fairs on the weekends, but I don't know. We just bought a bus last year or 2 years ago. I can't keep track of time, so we'd like to make the money to pay that thing off, I guess.
Yeah, do some indie tours because I mean the radio thing is like you got to sink some freaking cash into that thing to make it successful, and then you hit top 30, top 20, and then you get top 10, and it's like cha-ching. I mean you got to pump money into that thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing for us, man. Like I don't know that anyone cares anymore about new music from Hinder. They just want to hear the stuff that they know and get drunk and call it a night. That's my take on it. I don't really know. We do have some fans that do want new stuff, but for the most part, people just want to hear that first record. So.
Weird.
Yeah.
And
you guys came to Scottsdale like a year and a half ago, and like you guys were like a bunch, like some company was like, "Hey, you guys want to hear Hinder sing? You guys want to hear Hinder in person?" And like they flew you to here, and you like played like acoustic, at like a bar in front of like 30 people or something. Like
we played for like 30 minutes,
something like that. Yeah, like they paid for it though.
Yeah, that's the good stuff right there.
Yeah, I mean,
hotel room.
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, I'm seeing some stuff that's interesting for some. It's mostly country artists that I like, but I'm seeing a lot of those guys booking private gigs, and they're saying, "I'll come play your freaking pool house."
Does Hinder ever do private gigs?
with my acoustic and stuff like that? Do you guys ever do stuff like that?
No, we would if it paid. We'd be there. I guarantee it.
Definitely.
Get every penny we can out of this music biz while we're still doing it.
The show you met your wife at, your guys' very first show, that had to be a private party of some sorts. Like it was
it was like the birthday bash of the radio station here in Greenville, South Carolina. So before things got stricter, I guess, because they're just a bunch of drunk people on boats listening to rock and roll with no power out in the middle. Like the power kept shutting off, and oh my gosh,
it was a great idea.
A shit show.
Let's have Hinder playing in the middle of a pond.
It seemed like a lot of fun. Yep.
Yeah, with cables and there's not enough wireless or anything like that. And you're playing on the water.
Is that idea? Do you like it that your very first show on a major label to start this journey was where you call home now? Like
it's like a kind of weird Disney movie I wouldn't watch probably, but no, I'm happy. But what are the chances of that? So for people that don't know, like my wife was just helping out with the radio station. My wife now didn't know her at the time, and we're a baby band, right? We just have one single hit in radio, and all I know is we're going to be back in South Carolina in a few weeks. So I'm like, hey, if you want, come out to our show in Charleston, whatever, and I'll put you on the list. You don't have to pay for tickets. So I'm just trying to get fans, and she actually bought it. She gave me her number. This hot chick, I couldn't believe it. And that's how we met. Yeah. So she just became a friend at first that came out to shows and liked the shows, and I'd call her when we were in the area, and here we are.
And
Old married couple.
She moved to Oklahoma, which where Hinder's from. At what point does Hinder decide that like we don't need to live in the same town? Like we this could be an email.
Well, Mike was the first one to move. Mike moved to Atlanta before I moved here. I moved here in 2016, but I mean, you can do everything email away. It's all so easy. And then COVID though, that thing has kind of sucked for us. We can't really get together and just do stuff, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's one good thing about being a solo artist is I haven't had to worry about like jamming with my guys and keeping the chops up. Like it's just me playing, so I don't have to worry about that. I've found like there's some weird stuff with being in a band now that I'm older, and I'm pretty realistic about where I'm at and what I'm gonna do and what I want to do and all that type of stuff. But I still have the ambition to grow it and push it as much as I possibly can. I believe in myself and I believe in the work that I'm putting into it, but I'm a lot more realistic about things now. I and as a solo guy and with family and kids and stuff, I can kind of work my solo gig around what works for my schedule. If I was in a band, I think it would be freaking impossible to expect the other members of the band to cater to my schedule, because being in a band is like a marriage to three or four other people. You have to be courteous. You spend a lot of time together. I mean, it's a relationship that you have to feed every day and work on. And
do you guys hate each other less than most bands?
I think so. Yeah, we get along really well. I was thinking about that. Like if we ever got asked in an interview, what was our biggest fight? I don't even remember fights. I mean, we had some drunk and stupid stuff, but nothing like no one's ever thrown fists or. We like drinking beer and we like making each other laugh. It's the same joke every day. It's just dick and fart jokes every day.
Well, I have a lot of respect for bands with that type of longevity, because there is an element to where like I've been in bands with people that I can't be friends with anymore.
Yeah.
And most bands that I've been in have been that way. There's been a falling out with somebody or another person, or, you get offended because you're doing whatever the case may be. It's just really dramatic. And then I'm a solo guy now, and that's one thing that's just been, I don't have that, but I definitely miss the camaraderie of being with people and jamming with people and have other musicians around to push you.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes I'm playing guitar by myself and I'm like, man, it'd be cool if there's a bass player here to kind of give me an idea for this fucking chorus.
Absolutely.
And I just wonder, sometimes when I do get to jam with people, it's a really awesome experience. And I'm like, this is fun. This is what it's like to jam with people, huh? That's great.
Yeah. And for me too, put out my own stuff. I know exactly where I'm going with it. So it's nice to work with someone else like, oh, never would have thought about that. So yeah, I totally get it.
What are your thoughts on being a reality television star, Mark? I have an idea. I've been texting you. You haven't answered. It's a beautiful name. I won't say too much.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. It turns out I talked to a guy. Really cheap to film the pilot. I got it. Don't worry about it. Second of all, I'm friends with a reality TV producer. So I see a second act in Mark King. You're going to be like famous for what you do now. And I'm going to talk you into it one of these days, man.
Man, I'll keep drinking. You will talk me into it. Tonight's the night.
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much for stopping by the show, man. I had a lot of fun talking about, your glory days. And I'll also, real quick, tell everybody where they can find Caffeine Genius and tell everybody a little bit what it's about. Yeah,
so Caffeine Genius is just the name, first of all, is just about how much better I feel when I have a cup of coffee in the morning. Like, man, I feel so good. I feel genius. That's where the name came from. But it's just my stuff in the basement. It's very 90s influenced, I would say. But yeah, you can find it pretty much anywhere. Apple Music, Spotify, everywhere. Just Google that shit. Caffeine.
And are you like doing the? Releasing it like EP track, album at a time, or are you doing track by track?
I did an EP first, and I've done singles ever since. I did a Twitter poll. I think all three of my fans responded, and they would rather have singles. So.
It's hard to, yeah. I think that like hip hop kind of started that, you know, like with, well, obviously they did that with like the big bands that had success and stuff. But it seems like nowadays it's like focus on one song, you know, make it sound as good as you can, make a good video for it, and like just sort of ride that until it dies, you know, before, because you know, handing, like you think about it, it's kind of dumb to hand somebody like some kid like here's 17 songs, like try to learn them. It's like that's a lot to. True. You know, especially when 5 other albums came out that day.
Well, yeah, with
I dig it as a consumer, like when people are just showing me like one song every month or so, you can actually absorb it and everything.
That's a good point. And for the touring aspect, if you wanted to, like for a band like Hinder, if we just want to do singles, it makes way more sense. Just put that out when you go tour, and then, you know, wait till the next time you want to go tour again, put out a new single that, you know, creates a new buzz. So yeah, as opposed to trying to get people to pay attention for more than a month or two.
And we'll laugh all the way to the bank, Mark.
Oh man.
Dusty, Mark, love you guys. Had a good show with you.
Love you too, man. Take care. Mark, good to meet you, brother.
Likewise.
Yeah. Check out Caffeine Genius on Spotify. Anywhere you can stream music, check it out there. Let's get that $55 up to $75.
That's gonna take about
cover that artwork.
4 or 5 months.
Yeah, we gotta cover that artwork. All right, guys. Good seeing y'all. Take it easy. Later, everybody.
Well, I don't think and I thought it, that's different. I said what I said and I meant it, or lamented. Words given weight without thought in a person, the way that I talk and the way that I ought to be able to pause and to say that the fault can be placed on my arms. I display full assault to disgrace in its arm. Pray for the day they could wait for the calm. You can't control the storm, only weather it, whether it's 5 weeks and 5 days of rain sideways, or scorched earth, search for death, or water left with all the thorns, with the petals gone, settle on the breath of autumn. If the ground fits, wear it, the crown fits. If the crown fits,